Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Friday, November 18th in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Actor, author, and entrepreneur Colin Egglesfield is well known to daytime audiences for playing Erica Kane's son Josh on ABC's All My Children. His role on All My Children led to roles on Rizzoli and Isles, Melrose Place, and the romantic comedy Something Borrowed with Kate Hudson. In 2014, with his passion for wanting to make a positive social impact and a desire to get into the world of real estate, he started his own real estate investment company, Stage 2 Properties, and began rehabbing houses on the south side of Chicago. He has since branched off and is working on projects all over the country with the goal of helping revitalize underserved communities and provide opportunities for quality living. These experiences and more have shaped Colin and taught him a lot about life, success, and making a difference, which is the impetus for writing his book, Agile Artist, in which he shares his rich life stories and provides plenty of inventive strategies to help you to break through to your creative, true self. Colin regularly speaks to corporations, charity groups, and organizations about the principles in his book, namely resiliency, communication, and strategies for success. And he is one successful young man. Please welcome to the Locher Room, Colin Egglesfield. Hey, Colin, pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. I'm glad you brought up Judy because I had forgotten that. Your lovely message to Judy Bly Wilson.
Yeah, she was incredibly instrumental in my getting cast for my role on All My Children as Josh Madden. She was someone who was just a really big advocate. I'd originally gone into audition, and I had just gotten out to Los Angeles, and I'd been auditioning for some of these bigger, like primetime TV shows, and then All My Children came up, and there's certain things that just feel right, and I just, for whatever reason, I wanted to do it. All My Children was the show that my mom and my sister watched when I was a little kid, so it was always on. I always knew who Erica Kane was and Tad Martin and Adam Chandler. And when this thing came up, it was just one of those things where I was like, something told me like I should do this. And when you go out to Hollywood, agents and managers, they have high aspirations for their actors, and they were essentially playing a little hardball with Judy and ABC, in the sense that they were like, well, he's testing for all these primetime TV shows. You got to make an offer we can't refuse. And I was an unproven commodity. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, no, I want to do this. Like, tell them yes. And they were just like, no, you got to like make the offer better. And they ended up hiring this other actor because they just didn't come up to what my agent and my manager wanted. And I knew, I was like, oh, this was a mistake. I was like, I wanted to do it. And I didn't speak up for myself. I was like, well, my agent, my manager, they've been doing this longer than I have. I'm just going to listen to them. And then like life went on. And then my agent, my manager, like have got like 30, 40 other clients. And I'm sitting there like, okay, nothing's happening. I was like,
looking at your watch.
Yes. And fortunately, it was about 2 or 3 months later, and All My Children came calling again and asked if I'd be interested in doing the role. And I told my agent, I said, just do it. I want to do it. Like at that point, fortunately I had a second chance at saying yes, because most of the time you don't. And I learned my lesson in that instance where you really got to stand up for yourself and be your own advocate for the things that you want in life, if you really truly feel it's the right thing.
Yeah. And what was that phone call like to your mother?
Oh my God, it was amazing. It was fantastic. She was incredibly proud and excited. And as soon as I got on the show, a few months later, my mom and my dad came to the studio, and I told Susan that my mom and dad were huge fans of the show and that they were going to be coming in. And she was like, oh yeah, I would love to meet them. And Susan's scenes were in the morning, and I had some scenes later in the afternoon. And so I told my parents to come a little bit early. And for some reason, Susan had finished her scenes earlier than we had thought. And so when my parents finally came, I went to the makeup room, and I asked the makeup ladies where Susan was, and they were like, "Oh, she just left." And I was like, "No, damn it." So I was like, "Well, let me just go. Let me at least show you the sound stage, because our dressing rooms and the makeup and wardrobe is all on the second floor. The studio was on the third floor." So we go to the stairwell, open up the stairwell to go up to the third floor. And sure enough, Susan just happened to be coming down the stairs. So my parents got to meet her. And I mean, it was amazing. And Susan is,
that's amazing. You know, I worked on As the World Turns for 13 years in PR.
Okay.
Not as an actor, but I was introduced by my mom, you know, to those two shows. Yeah. So I relate to calling her when I got the job, you know.
Yeah.
It's a proud moment for the parents.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it was really cool, because, you know, it was my first real acting job, and she was just really sweet, and took me under her wing and just made me feel at home and comfortable. And she was like a second mom for me. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine, you know, for your parents, you know, probably worrying. I don't know if they worried, but, you know, when you tell your parents you're going into acting, I'm sure there's a little fear, because they know how hard it is.
Yeah. They're like, "Oh, this acting thing is real. Good job, honey."
Yeah. They totally. We'll come back to All My Children, but currently you're also hosting your own podcast, Coffee with Colin. How did that come about?
Yeah. So I wrote a book 3 years ago called Agile Artist. Mm-hmm. And essentially it's all the things that I've learned as an actor that I think everyone should know about and can learn from an acting class, in terms of how to communicate better, how to authentically.
And you mean whether you're an actor or not?
Sorry. Yes. Whether you're an actor or not. It's essentially all the things that I've learned that I think anyone can learn from and apply to their own life, in terms of goal setting and learning how to communicate authentically, things that we learn in acting class that really help strip away all that fear of judgment from what people think of you. And, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, where everyone's just like, "Oh, everything's fine, everything's great," you know, when it's not, because you don't want to bother people. You don't want to, you know, dump your garbage on people. But there's a way to really authentically communicate with people that we learn as actors, that really creates effective connection with your scene partner. And I realized that if more people were to apply these same things that we learn in acting class to their daily life, marriages, relationships, business partnerships, I guarantee would be much better off, because, you know, what we learn in acting class is really to communicate authentically and not let our fear of being judged and the people pleasing aspect, I think a lot of us, you know, grow up with, gets in the way of us really truly having these deep, genuine connections with people. And then, you know, I talk about my cancer experience that, you know, we may get into, but things that I learned in my acting classes, in terms of learning to create a reality for these characters. When we go into these auditions, I learned and realized that there's, you know, our mind is an incredibly powerful tool in order to create the reality that we want to, that we need in order to create what we want to have in life, whether that's moving through a health scare like cancer, or creating a career that you want to have, or having a relationship that you want to have. A lot of it has to do with the law of attraction, the power of manifestation. And this is some of these like woo-woo concepts that when I first learned about them, I'm like, what is this like hocus pocus crap? But I really started to learn there is power in when you put something on like a vision board and you put these pictures. I had this life coach have me do this stuff, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Cutting my picture out. And she had me put my headshot on the cover of a GQ magazine. And she's like, you need to have your subconscious see these things in order for them to actually happen in reality. And I'm like, all right, I'll try this stuff, because I wasn't working as an actor, and I was like, I was desperate. I was like, okay, I'll try your woo-woo stuff. And sure enough, within 2 weeks, I started to book some roles, and it was one of the roles that I put on my vision board was a World War II love story. And sure enough, I ended up booking this World War II love story, and then these other things started happening, and I was like, maybe there is something to this, like putting these ideas out into the universe, and the power of manifestation, which, I think a lot of people may be a little bit skeptical about, but I'm a firm believer in, just from my own experiences.
I said this recently because somebody must have mentioned it, but gratitude, I've started to really, use that. Was it, the cancer scare might have been part of that, but, realizing what you were studying as an actor and realizing that all of those lessons could help others, was there a pivotal moment that you were like, I could impart this, or it dawned on you that what you were learning wasn't only helping your acting, but could help life lessons?
Yeah, I think where I really started to recognize that what I've learned in my career and in life could benefit people was when it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And I got to a place in my career with acting where I had the goals of working with A-list actors and being on TV shows and movies. And I did it. I was working with, I just worked with Sylvester Stallone on this movie, and had worked with Gary Oldman and Kate Hudson, and was on, these hit TV shows. And, I still felt like there was something where I wasn't maybe feeling as fulfilled as I thought I would be once I were to get onto these, high profile TV shows. Mm. And what I realized was that I gain a lot of fulfillment from when I feel like I'm helping other people fulfill on whatever it is that matters to them. I've always liked teaching and coaching, and I just get a lot of pleasure. I feel purposeful in my life when I feel like what I have is beneficial to someone else. Don't get me wrong, I love acting, it's my passion, but I felt like I was tired of going into these auditions and waiting to be picked for these roles. And these were other people's ideas and stories that I was waiting to be chosen for. And I got to a point in my life where I was like, I think it's time for me to start telling my own stories and not wait around to be picked. I decided I needed to get out of my comfort zone to start maybe producing my own projects, or start doing something where I was more at the cause of it rather than just waiting around for the phone to ring. And I felt like I had a lot to offer. And I think this is where a lot of actors get frustrated, and maybe a lot of people in life, where they feel like they have a lot to offer and there's just a lack of opportunity. But what I realized is you got to create your own opportunities in life. You can't just wait around for, the job, or that, the love of your life, or you got to get out into the world and explore and try things and create things. And I knew I was hiding behind my agents and my managers. And I knew it was time for me to just break out and do something different. And it was right around when my dad passed away and my mom was moving, and I felt like I needed to go back home to Chicago to reconnect with my family for a little bit. And so I went back home, and I decided to get into real estate because I felt like I just needed something outside of acting to get my hands dirty with. And so I started flipping houses, and it was such a nice break to just start doing something tangible with my hands and reconnect with my family. And when I was back in Chicago, I just started connecting with people, and someone asked me to come and speak at this. It was kind of like a networking conference for entrepreneurs. And I just started telling my story of what it's like to work in Hollywood and the audition process. And as an actor, you're really an entrepreneur, and you've got to think of yourself as the CEO of your own company. And this is what I talk about in my acting classes that I teach my students, in terms of not just the craft of acting, but the entrepreneurial business side of acting, where you've got to really think of yourself as a business owner to be successful in anything in life. And so I started sharing all of this. And afterwards, this woman came up to me and asked if I'd ever thought about writing a book. She said, "You've got some really interesting things that you talk about." And I was like, I wouldn't know the first thing about writing a book. And she's like, "Well, I'm a publisher and I help people write books. And had I not listened to my instincts to leave Hollywood, as hard as that was, I just knew it's these things where you got to listen to your gut. You got to listen to your instincts." And I was like, I just need to leave LA for a little bit. I don't know why, but I had this calling to go back home. And had I not done that, never would have met Melissa Wilson, who helped me publish my book, and took me like 8-9 months. And I just poured my heart and soul into this thing. And afterwards, I went on this book tour around the country. And what I thought was just going to be like me showing up and signing autographs and taking pictures turned out to me showing up, and there was a podium with a microphone, people in seats. And I was like, oh crap, I got to like talk to these people. So I just started telling my story and realized that I really enjoy public speaking, and turned into this thing now where I'm speaking at corporations, and that's where I feel like I really started to find a lot of pleasure and fulfillment outside of acting with regards to just getting out there in the real world and sharing with people, the things that I've learned.
Sharing our stories are so incredibly important. And, I started this at the beginning of the pandemic to cheer people up because everybody was home and it was a way to reconnect. And it was bringing, familiar faces like yourself to people who watched your show. And I didn't really think long and hard because I was doing it to cheer people up, but it really, no matter who we are, your story, my story, we can all learn from each other. And I think it's brilliant that you just got to do that. And I love how you teach your students, or, even people you talk to, because I've heard so many actors say to me, on both Guiding Light and World Turns when I worked with them, God, they wish, somebody had taught them the business aspect, of how this all works, and to think of yourself. I love that concept of thinking of yourself as a CEO. So is Coffee with Colin sort of an extension of all of this?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Didn't answer.
That's okay.
So after this book tour, I decided to put together a one-man show, and I was going to go on tour, and it was called No, I'm Not Tom Cruise, a Midwesterner's Guide on How to Survive Hollywood and Beyond. Because everyone's like, oh my God, you look like Tom Cruise. You should be a stunt double, or like you should be his like whatever. And I just it gets I just kind of like was trying to make light of it.
Yeah.
And I did one show in Chicago, and then the pandemic hit. So I was like, okay, much like you're sitting at home, just like bored out of your mind. So I decided to, do some online coaching and courses. And then I just was like, oh, maybe I just start a podcast and start talking to some of my actor friends. So Matt Morrison and his wife were my first guests.
Oh, nice.
Friends with Matt. And so he and his wife jumped out for my first episode. Then had Glenn Powell and Sasha Alexander from Rizzoli and Isles. And it was just really nice to just get to know these people who I've known for years, but I hadn't really gotten to know them on the deep level that I'm able to get to know these people from just having these hour-long conversations where people are asking questions in the chat, and so it was, it just kind of took off from there. And now I'm on season 5.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. And I have actors, athletes, influencers. I'm now a brand ambassador for a stem cell company, which is why I now live in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this all came from me doing this talk show and just getting out there, getting out of my comfort zone. This woman who's the president of this stem cell company called R3 Stem Cell And the 3 R's stand for repair, restore, rejuvenate. And she reached out to me and actually took one of my my goal setting online courses during COVID. And during the 6-week course that I labeled Inspire, we do goal setting, and I have people in there essentially rewrite the script of their life, where much like a screenwriter will write a screenplay, we really are actors and storytellers in our own lives. And a lot of the times we are miscast in the wrong story that we should be telling in our lives based on where we were born or how we were raised. And so in this course, I help people start to rewrite what they want their future to look like. And just getting to know this woman, her name is Kathleen Francesca. She was like, yeah, I'm the president of the stem cell company, and I came from nothing, and now this company is starting to grow, and I want to take it international. And started asking her more questions about it. And I actually have a degree in biology from the University of Iowa. I was planning on going to medical school before all of this acting.
Yeah, I knew that. Wow.
And I just was asking her, and she was like, you know what, you got a great following, and would you be interested in helping us promote the benefits of stem cell therapy and help us do some social media and be a brand ambassador? And I was like, I looked into it. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. So I started working with them like 6 months ago, and it's great because, I do my acting, and then in between my acting jobs, I get to help people.
And they're based in Arizona?
Yeah, they're based here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And so doctors come in from all over the country, and we train them in we train them in the science of stem cell therapy, and then the practical application with joint injections, infusions, to then they can go back to their clinics and offer stem cell therapy procedures to their patients to help them feel better. And stem cell therapy is great because it's natural, it's safe, it's not harmful like drugs, and there's no side effects. And it essentially helps reduce inflammation in your body. And that's like 95% of disease is caused from inflammation in our body from what we eat or stress. And stem cells just go to any part of your body that you're experiencing inflammation or damage, and it signals to your own body to heal itself. So it's amazing.
I mean, these stories are incredible because you got up and spoke at this event. You got a book.
Yeah.
She attended your class.
Yes.
And now you're a spokesperson for her company. In school, your degree, do you learn a lot about stem cell stuff?
We learned that stem cells, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, those first few cells are stem cells because they replicate, and they can become themselves, and they can become any other cell in your body. And then as they proliferate, we learn that they become specialized so that eventually skin cells will become skin, some stem cells will become skin cells, some will become muscle, some will become brain tissue. And as we get older, the amount of stem cells in our body slowly declines. And that's why our bodies start to break down as we get older, because the amount of stem cells in our bodies just naturally declines. So we don't have the ability to repair ourselves as we get older. So it's beneficial to receive these stem cell therapy infusions just as normal upkeep and preventative health care for yourself. And I've been learning a lot more about stem cells since
That's what I was gonna. Yeah, I mean, you must
with the company. But yeah, when I went to studied biology, pre-medicine, we learned the basic, science of a little bit about stem cells. But now I know like this full deep dive into the actual like physiology and the biochemistry. It's really fascinating.
And how's Arizona treating you?
It's great. I love it. The weather's great. It's like 65 degrees right now.
All right, that beats where I am. So yeah.
Where are you at?
I'm in Jersey, in New Jersey.
Okay.
So East Coast.
Yeah. So it's a nice quality of life. There's, hiking, and I love to bike and run, and it's really nice quality of life out here.
I love that. So you talked about studying pre-med, but you then went on a random model talent search your senior year. Talk about how that changed the course of your life.
Yeah. Once again,
it really is. You put yourself in these places that.
Yeah. I think, we hear about these opportunities in life, and a lot of people are like, oh, that would never work, or that's a hoax, or whatever. And I've always been the one that was like, what if? Like, let's go check it out. Like, can't hurt to go check it out and see what it is. And so my senior year, I heard on the radio, it was like February, freezing cold, and I was coming home from my waitering job at the university athletic club, and I heard on the radio, come to the Model Search America next Tuesday night. You can travel the world and make lots of money. And I'm like, well, anything would beat this like $7 an hour freaking waitering job. So I went to the Davenport Holiday Inn, and these two ladies were representing this model search company, and they invited me to this model convention. So I graduated college, took the MCAT, went to this model convention, and they started sending me out on these auditions, and I started to book these model jobs, and ended up doing this modeling job for Ralph Lauren down in Florida, and then Versace. And then my agency sent me to Milan, Italy, and I was doing runway shows for Giorgio Armani and Versace and Dolce & Gabbana, and having dinner with Elton John and the Spice Girls, and just all these celebrities. And I was like, this is amazing. But I was like, well, this will probably last a year or two, and then I'll go to medical school. And then it just kind of kept snowballing, and I ended up moving to New York City, did the Calvin Klein underwear box and some more modeling jobs. And my agent asked if I wanted to go on some commercial auditions. I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, and there's really no acting.
And acting ever crossed your mind at that point?
Not really. I was always just kind of shy and introverted. I mean, I liked sports, but getting up in front of people was not something I was very comfortable doing. But when I started going on these commercial auditions, there was really no acting involved. It was like drive a car for Pontiac, or like shaving for Gillette. It's like, nothing.
Things you do in your daily life.
And I started booking some of these commercials, and then they said, have you ever thought about actually doing real TV or film work? And I was like, I mean, it was the idea kind of was interesting, but I was like, I mean, they said, why don't you take an acting class? And again, here's these doors opening up, and you just check it out. Just go explore, go see what it's like. And I jumped in, and it was terrifying.
Before we say no, say yes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's,
just say,
great.
Well, let me check it out. And I fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is like the first time I feel like I've got permission to say authentically how I feel. And reading these scripts, I wasn't always great at articulating how I felt or what I wanted, but having the words on this page and being able to like tap into the desire of these characters, I was like, yes, this is what I've been wanting to say. Like, I just didn't know how to say it. Now I've got the words in front of me. This is amazing. And there's a beautiful girl standing in front of me, and I get to kiss her, like, this is amazing. And so I loved it just because it was, it really taught me how to, like I was saying earlier, just how to effectively communicate and tell someone how I felt without feeling embarrassed about it. I think a lot of us, we get embarrassed or feel uncomfortable sharing how we really feel because we don't normally do that. Mm-hmm. And it's very uncomfortable. And acting class is a great training ground for how to really connect with people on a real authentic level.
You speak about being introverted, shy, all of these classes. is there a moment that your family turned to you and like could really see the effects? Because listening to you now, you are incredibly smart and articulate. Like you would never, understand that side that your family, I'm sure, knew very well.
Exactly. Yeah. Like my mom said, I didn't really start speaking until I was 4 years old. And she was like, we thought there was something wrong with you. And so I've always just kind of been a little slow, late bloomer. But I think it's, if you care about something, you're passionate about something. I just was interested in reading these stories and playing these characters. And so I just, with practice, years and years of analyzing character and what motivates. I think what I also love about acting is I'm really interested in what makes people do what they do. And when people just blanketly say someone is evil or bad or good, I think that's a cop-out way or easy way of just dismissing someone, because the human psyche and the mind is so complex. And, I think it's so easy to write people off without really truly understanding what their upbringing was like and what made them do what they do. And exploring all of this and understanding this and studying all of this has really helped me understand people a lot better. And instead of writing people off right away, I feel like I've been able to, help people maybe understand a little bit more about themselves. And that's why I wrote the book, because I feel like the things that I've learned from a psychological standpoint, in terms of what the reasons why, like, I would feel so nervous in front of my auditions, because I got triggered with the fear of being judged from, like, when I was in grade school, and all these feelings of not being good enough and being made fun of come up. And there's a lot of stuff in our subconscious and, deep down in our psyche that is trapped in there. And unless we really shine a light on that stuff, it can really prevent us from going out into the world and creating and fulfilling on what we really want to. And, they say like 90% of our decision-making comes from our subconscious. And, a lot of people vote for certain politicians, not based on rational, factual information. It's based on their subconscious feeling about how they feel safe or protected or connected on like a deep primal level. And once you start to understand these things, you can really start to communicate better with people. And I just find all this stuff fascinating. And that's why.
Is there one person or a book that you attribute to helping you most?
I would say my first acting teacher was very instrumental in helping me realize how kind of fake I was kind of being in my life and not being real, standing up for myself, and how we can go through life almost like performing for other people instead of authentically doing what we really truly want to in life. I would get up and try to do a few of my scenes when I first started acting, and she was like pretty hardcore. She'd be like, "Stop! What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just doing my scene." She's like, "No, you're not. No, you're not. You're trying to perform. You're trying to like make us think you're good. Stop it. If you are here to make us like you, there's the door. Like, we don't have time for that shit." Like, I mean, it was pretty hardcore. I was like, "I'm just trying to do this." Like, no, you're not. You're not doing like, what is the scene about? Who is this character? Stop trying to like perform. Just show up, be real, be honest, say the words, look at the other person in front of you, and just connect with them. And it takes practice in letting go and being okay if people don't like you. And she would say, not everyone is going to like you. That's not why you are here. You are here to tell stories. Not everyone is going to think. There's people that don't like Robert De Niro or Meryl Streep. Like, your job is not to be liked. Your job is not to get the job. Your job is to tell stories and be brave and put yourself out there and make a difference for the world. You are a servant to the script. And the more that you can get out of your own head and communicate from here rather than from here, because most of us live life from up here, I really learned to shift my focus and my awareness down into your heart center, because this is where we really connect with people and fall in love with people. And so she was really instrumental in me starting to.
What's her name?
Her name is Jackie Siegel.
For some others, she might have scared the living, what out of them, and they might have run out the door.
Yeah, and I've had some other acting teachers who are pretty hardcore, but it's good to have someone who's honest and direct, who, because I wasn't necessarily used to that, except for like in sports. That's what I really liked about my coaches in sports. And then, I've always been a follower of Tony Robbins. I've always been interested in just personal development. So I've seen him live. If anyone has the opportunity to see his, like, Unleash the Power Within, or Date with Destiny, he's incredible at helping you overcome some of these limiting mindset beliefs and to fulfill on what really matters to you.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
All my children, thankfully, they came calling a second time.
Yeah.
You show up your first day. Are you scared out of your mind?
Oh, yeah, but excited. And I didn't even know that I was Erica Kane's son. They just.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, wow.
Asked me as this character, Josh Madden. Josh Madden,
Yeah.
What does that have to do with Erica Kane other than.
Speaking of.
Yeah, there you go. And it's like, isn't it amazing, like, how much we all look alike?
Yeah, I know. Seeing this large in front of me, just really, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And so my first scene was I had to come out of a door and punch someone in the face because he had inappropriately been hitting on one of the other characters in the show, Danny, I think her name was. And so, I got to come out and just punch some dude in the face as my first scene on All My Children. And then from there, soap opera it's not easy because you're just memorizing a ton of dialogue. And a lot of it is just not the most natural sounding dialogue, how people normally talk. A lot of it is you're regurgitating information so that if someone hasn't watched the show for a couple of weeks, they can tune in and,
Have somebody warned you of the amount of dialogue before you got through the door?
Yeah. I just, knowing, watching soap operas growing up from when my mom, and once I started to audition for soap operas, I started watching some of them just to make sure I kind of knew what I was getting into. And, but it's great training ground for any actor out there. And a lot of people may say, like, oh, well, soap opera, that's like the lowest, form of acting. And I'm like, I guarantee you, like, some of the best actors I've worked with are soap opera actors, because not everyone can do it. It's not.
And those movie stars we all look up to, there's a lot of them who could not learn that dialogue if their heart depended on it.
No way.
Yeah, it's so true. Can you put into words the lessons you learned in Pine Valley?
That's a good question. The lessons I learned from working on All My Children and working in Pine Valley, that it really takes a team effort to be successful in anything, and to really help each other out and be there for each other. And it was really great because on that show, it really did feel like a family. And, after being there for 3 years, you really get to know people. And my last day there, it was, man, that was hard, because I was like, I didn't want to leave. Part of me was excited to see what the next chapter of my acting career was going to be. But part of me was like,
was it your choice at that time or their choice?
yeah. So I had a 3-year contract, and the contract was ending, and I thought I was going to get renewed, because a lot of the other actors had their contracts renewed. And when our producer called me up, I was walking in Soho, like on Mercer Street, I remember. And, it was just, it was like Thursday afternoon or something like that. And she called me up, and she was like, "Hey, Colin, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm great. Like, how are you?" She's like, "Great. So listen, we're killing your character off." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And that initial like, "Wait, what? Like, how can you kill? Like, what do you mean killing?" Like, and so it was like, you start to realize, like, well, did I do something wrong? Am I not a good actor? Or did I piss someone off? It's like all these thoughts just started coming into my head, like, shit, what and it started to make me feel like, did I do something? Should I do, like, and it can really mess with your head in that sense.
I bet.
But what I realized was that, as much as I love being there, I think it's important to ask yourself these questions, because we can end up being in relationships or in a job where if we are really truly honest with ourselves, and if we were to ask ourselves, is this where I want to be? Is this what I want my life to be about? And when I really asked myself that question, I was like, as much as I loved being on this show for 3 years and the people that I work with, I was like, I know it's time to try to elevate, but like try something, like
spread your wings,
spread my wings, try something different, get out there. And it can be scary to do that, because it can be safe to stay in a relationship that is not good, or at a job that is not fulfilling, but you've got the money and whatever. And I'm not telling everyone to just get out of a relationship or quit a job, because the circumstances have to be right. But I knew that if I was honest with myself, I was like, I think the universe is giving me a sign here that is matching what I'm feeling on the inside. And so I feel like it's very easy to blame other people for our circumstances. I could have been like, well, that crappy producer, I didn't like the people I worked with. But when I was really honest, I was like, just like you were saying earlier, I was grateful for this opportunity. I learned a ton, and I knew, like, okay, now it's time to be open to see what else is next. And I jumped back into an acting class, and I just kept auditioning. And sure enough, this audition for Melrose Place came up, ended up booking it. And that brought me back.
Doggy.
And I was like, this would have never have happened had I stayed at All My Children. And that then led to my role with Kate Hudson and Something Borrowed, and then all these other, and it's like, I was like, yes, I was like, it's one of these things where, had I stayed, none of these other amazing things would have happened. So
it's pretty impressive to be able to take that step, because we've all been there where you possibly lose a job. But I know for myself, I've stayed in jobs longer because of that safety net, for sure. And the money, and it's really easy for all of us to just stay static.
Yeah. And I just knew that I've always imagined myself at like 80 years old on some like some porch swing, looking back at my life. And I never want to have regrets that, man, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have tried this. Or so I've always just thrown myself into things, because I've always just kind of wanted to never, think like woulda, shoulda, coulda. And I think that's served me in a lot of ways. And in some ways, I feel like looking back, I know I could have maybe had seeked out more mentors, more guidance. A lot of the times I felt like I was almost not good enough to be on these shows. It was because I don't come from an acting background, and there was always that little voice in my head that was like, do they really, like, are they going to find out that you're like not that great of an actor or whatever? So I've always had, and I think this is where when I talk to people, like, yes, I have that imposter syndrome thing. And this is another reason why I wrote the book, because a lot of us have this imposter syndrome thing that can really mess us up in life. And what I've realized that, that's just the part of our brain that's trying to protect us, just from an evolutionary perspective. If we didn't have that, we would be very reckless in our lives, and we wouldn't have survived as long as we have. You got to be able to make sure that you recognize that your emotions and these thoughts are there to protect us and serve us, not to run our lives. And once I started to do some of this coaching, and I realized that I needed to seek out some more mentorship and learn how to get a handle on some of these thoughts. I wish I would have done that earlier in my career, because I feel like, not that, like, I mean, who knows, whatever. But I think if
you feel you have a handle on it today,
I would say more so than I did when I was younger. But I think, to be perfectly honest with you, Alan, I think life is, since life is continually changing, I think it's important that we realize that we never are going to have it all figured out. And I think it's important to look at life with an open perspective, and not try to convert people with the way that we think. I think what we've lost in our ability to create something, especially in the United States right now, I think there's a lot of divisiveness in terms of what people think and believe. And instead of asking questions of each other and trying to understand the other side, I think we're very quick to put down and criticize and cancel each other, which never works. I mean, I just wish that there was some better leadership in this country that could essentially I wish like Tony Robbins would run for president, someone like that, who would be like, who understands the psychology of how people think. Because these politicians show up and be like, well, he's evil and he's bad and he's an idiot. And it's like, what are we in high school? Like, I feel like I'm listening to, like, I'm back in like 6th grade listening to these idiots on TV just yelling and fighting. And I'm like, we're better than this. Like,
we are better than this. It's sad. Yeah. The hate is awful.
Yeah.
The hate is awful. What are some of your favorite moments in Pine Valley?
I really loved, I just loved that I was Erica Kane's son. I had fun playing someone who was trying to kill her at first. But then I saved her life, and then we made up, and it was just such a fun journey. I loved working with Alexis. She's married to Justin Bruning. So Alexis Bruning, where, she and I had this, roller coaster of a relationship because she was married to JR. I loved working with Ian. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his last name. Who played my father, my real father.
I'm not going to know. The fans will tell me in a second.
Yes.
The fans will tell us in a second.
Yeah.
Who played your real father?
Yeah. He was such a great.
What's his character's name?
Dr. Madden.
Dr. Madden. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some of All My Children, but Alexa Haven. No, that's not.
Yeah, so it was that's right, Alexa Haven, who played Babe, and then
Ian Buchanan.
Ian Buchanan. That's who it was. Yeah, yeah, amazing guy. And yeah, it was great to just get to know a lot of the people that I worked with. And then when I was going through my cancer experience, because
I'm glad, because I was gonna
6 months into my 3-year contract, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer. And at first I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to know about it. Unfortunately, I had a surgery on a Tuesday, and I didn't have to work the rest of the week, so I didn't have to tell anyone. And then I came back to work, and then a few weeks later, I had to go for my radiation treatments. And 3 weeks into my radiation treatments, I just was feeling sick and nauseous. And one of our directors asked me if I was all right. And I didn't want him to think that I was like hungover and that I'd been out partying. And so I told him that I was going through this radiation treatment. And he was like, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" And I was like, "Well, I just, I was afraid like maybe I would get let go, or like, I wouldn't be able to continue because I wanted to be there." And he was like, "Go tell Julie, our producer." And so I went and told her, and sure enough, like the support that showed up for me was amazing. And, what I learned from that was, as scary as it may be, when you are vulnerable and let people know that you need help, it shows up. And like Torsten, gosh, it's been so many years. I forget. Torsten K. He wasn't someone who I was necessarily close with until he found out that I was going through this, and he offered to go to my checkups with me because I had to go to Sloan Kettering Hospital for like chest X-rays and CAT scans and blood tests, and it was just, it was a scary experience to go to the hospital every month, wondering if they were going to find a tumor somewhere. And so a lot of people just showed up, and I became closer to a lot of
because of it. How are you feeling today?
I feel great. So it was a 5-year, 5 years of kind of a scary experience. And a year later, cancer came back. I had to have another surgery. So for, 5 years, I kind of felt like a ticking time bomb, kind of like going into these checkups and wondering if they were going to find if it had spread someplace. And again, what really helped me through it was focusing on, being able to do my acting, and what we learned in acting class in terms of creating the reality. When we go into these auditions, we have to create our character's reality and create the characteristics of courage or strength or whatever it is when we're creating these characters. And I realized that I needed to create a character to get through this experience. And I picked Maximus from Gladiator. So every time I would go up to Sloan Kettering Hospital before I'd go in, I'd pretend like I imagined I was like in this gladiator outfit with my sword. And I'd be like, "Are you not entertained?" Like just like conjuring up these feelings of like being invincible.
Oh my God, you're going to make me cry. So my first cousin is going through, sadly, pancreatic cancer. Really? I'm going to send her this part because she's not an actress, but she should go into everything as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
What
I realized that no matter what you're facing in life, we all have a choice to decide who we want to be in the face of it. And it was presented to me, do you want to be someone who is afraid and is scared and who's not sure about the future? Or do you want to be someone who shows up and says, I am healthy. I am going to get through this. Nothing is going to stop me. And I am healthy. Like in my mind, I created, I'm healthy. And the doctors were like, well, you have a certain amount of percent. I'm like, don't tell me statistics. Don't tell me, like, you handle that stuff, doc. Like, I'm going to handle what I need to handle in order to get better. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to get some sleep. I'm going to take care of myself. And mentally, I would visualize that whatever cancer was going through me was like, I literally would visualize love and healing going on in my body, and just would focus on me showing up at all my children and being able to pour these feelings of fear and frustration into my character. And that's what's great about acting too. It's very therapeutic because you get to let out a lot of these emotions. So if you don't have that opportunity, I would definitely say go see a therapist or join an acting class. I mean, it's acting class.
Let it out. Yeah.
Therapeutic.
Wow. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Something Beautiful. Is that it? What it's called? I just blanked.
Oh, Beautiful Dreamer.
No. The Kate Hudson movie. What was that called?
Oh, Something Borrowed.
Something Borrowed. Yes.
Yes.
I was working when that came out at a TV and movie tour company in New York City. We basically did the Sex and the City tour that takes people around and shows locations. But we have a tour that takes people and shows a myriad of different movie locations. So when that movie came out, I worked and we surprised our bus with Emily Griffin. She came on the bus, and it's part of the DVD package.
Oh, amazing.
We did a whole thing because so much of it was in New York.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun. I mean, it must have been an amazing experience for you.
It was the best.
And it's a good film.
Oh yeah, it was like one of the things I'm most proud of in life, because
it's such a good film.
The audition process was just hell, but finally, after booking the film, I was like, oh my god, now I this is like a dream come true, but I was just so nervous because I was like, I'm working with all these major actors, but once I started getting in there and just playing with Kate and Ginny and John, it was just, man, if I could just
what a trio of a cast.
A
trio of a cast. What's next?
So I just filmed a movie for Lifetime with Chriselle Staus.
Oh yeah, great.
It's called actually, in who we worked with on All My Children back in the day, and it's a true story about a guy who killed two of his wives for the insurance payouts. He would target single moms with kids to marry and then kill, and then take the insurance money and collect the Social Security for the kids and the child support. And
are you the
husband? Now in jail. His name is Randy Roth, and the name
do you play him?
I play him.
Oh wow!
Chriselle plays the best friend of my second wife, and she's like, are you sure about this guy? There seems to be something off. And Laura Ramsey plays my second wife. She's like, no, I love him. He's like so sweet, and this guy was super charming, and you never think that this guy was like a sociopathic killer.
Is there an air date set?
I think they said it was going to be sometime in the spring.
Great. Wow.
And then I also did a movie. We shot in Spain, and we shot that in August, this independent film called Duchess. And
that must have been rough.
Yeah, that was rough. Diamond smuggling heist movie. Yeah.
In Spain. Really cool.
Yeah.
In Spain.
Yep.
I was going to ask you, do you have a dream guest for the podcast?
Oh man. Yes. I would love to interview Tom Cruise.
Ah.
Yeah, definitely. Tom Cruise is definitely up there.
Is that get his photo on that vision board?
Yep, exactly.
Colin, it is a pleasure to speak to you.
You too, Alan. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I truly hope everyone goes and picks up Agile Artist if you haven't already. Absolutely. Big plans for the weekend in Arizona?
Getting ready to head out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to visit my family for Thanksgiving. And just eat a lot of turkey and
I'm ready for that myself. I'm ready for that. Have a
Yeah.
great Thanksgiving, and thanks again for doing this.
All right. Thanks, Alan.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to Colin Egglesfield for joining us today. Like I said, please, if you haven't already done so, please pick up Agile Artist. Do yourself a favor. Join me on Monday when The Young and the Restless's James Hyde joins me at 2 p.m. Eastern. And on Tuesday, One Life to Live's Melissa Archer and John Brotherton will join me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you like today's video, click the like button and turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And as you know, you can stream audio versions. Just search The Locher Room on your favorite streaming platform. Have a great weekend, everybody. And please, please stay safe.